Hello and welcome to another episode of the Gritty Hour. We're all crammed in here for a makeshift podcast. On my far left, I have Barry Kieselstein-Cord. Welcome to the Gritty Hour, Barry.
Nice to see
To my immediate left, I have Phil Kosofsky. Hello. Good to meet you today. And on my right, I have Henry Boehringer. Welcome to the Gritty Hour, fellas. Now, three of us are born in the Bronx. I'm not going to name names of who wasn't. We got a Manhattanite. We got a Manhattanite in the crowd. So anyway, how are you men doing?
HEQ.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
End of the summer, looking forward to fall.
This is the first day in the King Charles III era.
It is.
It's very true.
Soon we'll be selling.
Sorry to lose this wonderful queen.
Yeah, well, she lived a long and prosperous life.
She
So.
managed to keep her equilibrium while all of those around her were losing theirs.
Oh, that's true.
Who could ask for more than 96 years? Though?
It's a lot to ask for, and she was hailing Hollywood last week introducing a new prime minister. It was fantastic.
Out of those 96 years, I wonder how many incidents or family problems she really regretted, and which, if you're going to rank the problems that that they had, with internal squabbling and all of that stuff, I wonder how you would rank them. Meaning, is her favorite son, is it Harry, who was Epstein's buddy? Is that
Andrew?
Andrew.
Yeah.
Harry was her favorite. But would you rank Andrew as number one?
As a problem, or as the one she liked the most?
As a problem.
As a
Excuse
problem.
me. Or would you rank Meghan Markle and her?
You've forgotten Diana.
Yeah.
Well, I was getting there.
I was going to say Diana. Yeah.
I was getting there.
The real problem was that they did not understand her one bit.
Right. And
Plus, in the beginning, they didn't handle her funeral well.
Horribly.
She faced a lot of animosity because of that.
But was it the queen's fault?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think it was the Queen's fault. I just think her attitude towards, as you say, Diana wasn't great to begin with. So
I don't know if she was great or not, but she was not understandable to the royal family.
The royal seed.
Yes. And the equerries make sure that the queen and everybody else observes the etiquette. So not having the flag at half-mast because she wasn't of the blood or some such was traditional, but times change. But the equerries did not.
yeah, I think that Diana's death was something that really marked or began to mark the British monarchy as being very fallible and out of touch. I think it was the first really big, thing that, or the reaction to it, that began to make people think, what are these people really doing here?
Mhm.
And
I don't know. I wasn't part of the UK, but it seems to me that the old guard is just really treated passed on. Her son is 73, assumes the throne is Charles III, and she really was old guard and hanging on the last vestiges of empire, the last ones. So Ireland, all the troubles over there, etc. And it's an interesting time how he will govern as principal royal at this point. Very interesting.
well, the general consensus when she died, Princess Diana, was that she did drag the royal family into the modern era. She was attributed with that anyway.
There's a play in London and then on Broadway entitled King Charles III. And it depicted Charles as king and how he changed many of the rules, such as meddling in politics and being very loud about opinions.
Referring to this guy?
Yeah,
Oh,
this guy. I think it was around, say, 20 years ago.
really?
Yeah.
Well, the first thing I read today was how he's gonna streamline the royal family. Maybe they'll give up a castle, who knows?
Well,
Invest in
the,
cars.
Get your real estate license ready.
the whole, how can I, you know, people wondered, why, and so many monarchies in Europe have gone to the wayside. Spain, Denmark, they just don't play significant roles in the day-to-day activity of the government or in the lives of their people.
Well, the whole role of the monarchy has changed.
Yeah.
They used to run countries and now they don't. Well, they're figureheads, right?
I think
For
the
the most part,
monarchy, the monarchy in England is part of the establishment. It keeps the conservatives happy, it keeps inequality well disguised. Right? And England has been stagnating for the last 20 years, except for people in London. So,
I think
That's a
that
fair statement.
the biggest thing that the monarchy brings to the table in England is tourist dollars. I mean, they are a major tourist attraction.
sure.
And people go there, they want to see this, and they want to see that,
And the guards.
and the guard, and whatever. And
That's a
people,
good point.
they probably import more dollars as a tourist attraction by selling souvenirs, teacups, and whatever else they do, than people realize. I mean, there's a lot of revenue coming in there. There's also, so there's a lot of different facets to the British monarchy and what they do, but mostly I think that I think Barry began to say something about, or was it Philip, about the last 20 years? Philip.
yeah, the only part of the British economy that's done well has been the financial and legal establishments and their hangers-on in London.
Right.
The rest of it, inequality increases, relative poverty, disadvantage of the middle class. Places like Wales and Scotland and such, I want to get out.
I've never been to England. I've been other places, but I've never been to England, and I really just don't want to go. It does nothing for me. I think it's just a overpriced, staid place to visit.
I don't know if it stayed.
Huh?
I don't know if it's stayed.
I mean,
in the sense of.
The other thing I think that the Queen has done and the royal family has done is that it's helped barber coats. They've become a staple, for the waspy wannabes in America, and everywhere else. They love their barber, and I don't know if they have a decent barber, but they certainly should be getting. I guess what they probably do is they probably get freebies.
Same thing for Land Rovers.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Or Range
They probably get freebies.
Well, Barry, you've done business there,
You
haven't
have to
you?
have your wellies, you have to have your barbers,
Right.
and you have to have your Range Rovers, your set of Purdy shotguns or Holland and Hollands, and your tweeds, which are still the best ones.
I think many people in Millbrook here would probably be naked without their wellies and their barbers and their tweeds and their whatever else is.
You've done business there, haven't you, in London?
I have.
What's it like doing business over there?
It's been a long time. But it's nice. I really enjoy the people. I think that they have a great sense of humor. They don't mind the cold weather, or they're very good at fudging it. When you're in a gale and it's raining and pouring and ice is coming down, you might be invited to a picnic and everybody says it was fun. And you're dying out there and you're saying, my God, this is miserable. I hate this. But people are fun. And depending on where you are, I always had a great time. I used to spend 3-4 weeks there at a time. Back in the days of Carnegie Street and fashion capital, they're very quantity, etc. And then over the years, I would go back and stay for, 2-3 weeks at a time. I've always liked it. I like that kind of edge of the old empire that they were hanging on to. It's fun. And for a person that's in the world of art, the museums are incredible, the galleries are incredible. The mix of people has grown widely. In London, I really never went out of London too many times, but I did. Frequently the Cotswolds. And I like that. It was a big segment in my life. I haven't in the last 15, 20 years. I spent more time in Italy, more time in France. But I liked it. I couldn't wait when I was a kid, my driver's license, to sit around my friend's Jag 120 wearing my pull-on, what do you call those short shoes, boots, joggers, and I was living the life, of course, in those days, it was the 60s. So it was closer to the real true Commonwealth, that they had. So I was imbued with this kind of fantasy that I really liked. It was a language I could speak. So
Oh, yeah, half the battle, yeah.
I was half the battle, so going to the food was terrible. Of course, now it's gotten very good. It's very international. We'll see what happens with the food, because when they joined the EU, which they're no longer in, it was an opportunity for cooks to come in from all over all over Europe, Western Europe, and they changed the cuisine. It went from the basic bit of beef, cabbage, or whatever, which you also find in Scotland, Ireland, to really international cuisine. So it's interesting to see what happens next with all the work permits. It's a big change.
Well, I'm sure there's somebody sitting in Canada and London checking out Prince Charles's photos for the monetary system. But we're talking about this mainly because the Queen died today.
Correct.
Queen is dead, God save the King. That's the saying. So, but let's move on to something else, if you don't mind, Henry.
Well, let's just, can we do that, or let's just kind of wrap up the British Empire?
Do you have a scissors you're going to cut off Stein?
As the only Irishman on this panel,
Well, that's part of it.
I was going to ask you, Henry.
Yes, sir.
What was your first job?
My first job, I was a page at NBC back in 1969.
How old were you?
I was just out of college. I was 21.
And you didn't work until you were out of college?
Well, I worked in an ice cream factory.
Right, okay.
But
Yeah.
that during the
The
summer.
first job he wants to talk about. Was
But, the ice, but,
that must have been interesting, though.
What, the ice cream factory?
Yeah, of course.
Well, it was
I
cold.
was going to say the page.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh. Yeah, it was good I'll tell you, there was a great group of people to work with. There was there's one or two that went on to be very successful. One fellow is a fellow named Thad Mumford, who was involved with the electric light. He won several Emmys for the Electric Light Company, I think it is. It was a PBS show. He became a executive producer or director of the last couple years of MASH, and I think he also was involved in that puppet. What is it again?
Kukla Fran and all.
No. Alf. I think he was a co-creator.
Creator,
Alf.
I've never heard of Al.
Trying to put a date on him.
And then another guy named Ron Canada was an actor, and he was very successful. He was on West Wing. Won a couple sci-fi things. He's became some movies. He's done well too.
Well, here's an important question. How were the parties at NBC?
How were the parties?
Yeah.
We didn't really party that. I mean, it was fun. It was a great job. It really was. I mean,
Do you think it had an effect on the rest of your life?
It did. It did.
Positive.
It really gave me the ability to begin to speak in public and not feel too awkward because of the tours we had to do. And then I ran into a bunch of great people, interesting, celebrities. I had the opportunity with Jane Fonda. This chick comes up to me, all dressed up in chiffon dress and perfumey and whatever else. And I'm doing the Tonight Show, Phil. And she says, "How do I get up to the Tonight Show?" And I said, "You got a ticket?" And she says, I'm on the show. I'm Jane Fonda. And I said, well, that way just get in the elevator, go to the 6th floor. Yeah, I mean, so, you know, and there is like, I wasn't supposed to, but I had a conversation with Jimmy Stewart, and
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
he was on a show back then called Speaking Freely, kind of similar to this, you know, and it was with a fellow named Edwin Newman, I think, was the moderator, and it was a Sunday morning show, and he was doing the show, and you know, we weren't supposed to talk to the celebrities, but I went over to him, I said, you know, my mother is a big fan of yours, and blah, blah, blah. And he was just as real as could be. He said, well, that's very kind of your mother. You give your mother my best regards. I mean, just, you know, I mean, just like Mr. Smith.
Was his accent the
Yes,
same
he
as
spoke
the
the same,
actor?
yes.
That- Okay.
Yeah,
He was a World War II hero.
He was?
Yeah.
He was
Korea, too?
heavily decorated.
Korea too, I believe he was a brigadier general.
Yeah, and he retired when brigadier general. He flew a lot of missions as the chief pilot in his squadron. A lot of bombing in Germany, and then went to other theaters of the war. Volunteered all through.
He was 4F on account of his ear, and It's a Wonderful Life. Put that little trivia out there.
That's an odd one, yeah. That's an odd
How
one.
about you, Phil? Your first job?
Well, I got working papers at age 14. And I registered with a temporary agency. And I probably did very well on the alphabetization test to prove that I could, at the elementary arithmetic test. So I would get lots of jobs. I remember taking inventory in the shoe department, right? Filling out a 3x5 card for every pair of shoes it was, marking those out. And then one of the jobs was I was at the docks loading food and things to go overseas to our troops. And it was before computers, and everything was in quadruplicate, the green copy, the red copy, the pink copy, and you had to write very hard, and you had to
Make
get,
it through all the
and
copies.
every shipment of every product had a 36-digit number. And if you had one digit wrong, you could send 5 tons of marshmallows to Germany, and they would be sent back. So those are my first jobs. Oh, and then I worked in the mail room at the United Way. I learned how to economically and decoratively wrap things with wrapping paper.
Sounds like it all served you well for your future. That is,
Sort of the bottom.
I remember the water cooler in the mail room was full of beer.
Now, that's the first I've ever heard anybody say that. I like that.
Yeah,
That'd be very good in a film.
that's a benefit, yeah. How about you, Sir Barry?
I've had so many jobs since college and before college. I don't know where to start. I did everything from cleaning bathrooms to working in steel factories to building toilets to stuffing envelopes for my family's business for catalogs to chauffeuring to being the fire starter at a big lodge up in the Poconos, being a camp counselor, being a scrap collector, go to the scrappers. Just went on and on and on. Then I worked my way after college in the advertising business. Became fairly successful at that. Did what I wanted to do. Left and went on to other jobs. It's been a lot of jobs. I've basically worked since I'm too old. So, there's a lot in between.
Actually, thinking back a little bit more, my first job was really back in my father's bakery in the Bronx, where everybody worked and pitched in. You know, I mean, I can remember like smearing pans when I was 6, sitting on the bench, and thinking it was fun. You know, little did I know what was to come. You know, but yeah, that was really, my first job. You know, but
So we're all so old. What do you think of current work ethic?
That was gonna be where I was gonna take this conversation.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. Can you co-host from now on?
current work. Wow.
I think it's all over the lot. I think that there are young people today that really put their shoulders into the grind and really do it as hard as they can, as long as they can, to be a success or to keep, just stay above board depending on their economic situation. You know, that's what I've seen, and I've seen the polar opposite where they don't want to work. The rewards for the ones that are working, for the most part that I've seen, the educated ones, have been phenomenal. Outstanding, and the ones that are not that highly educated, if they went into the trades, I think their remuneration oftentimes would be greater than if they had a major college education. I think it's all over the lot, but I think there's a feeling in the country that the generation, some of the current generations, have no desire to see through. Maybe they lack stimulation, maybe they're polarized by the fact that we've had so much political upheaval in this country the last number of years. Back, and I think it's disenfranchised a lot of goals that a lot of people have. They don't know where to turn, and a lot of them are frightened. We live in a very privileged country by and large. Some people listening to this might not think so, but they fix that.
But they have the internet.
But we have a lot of things that other countries don't, and I think it's a very odd time for young people. Our age group, your parents said you work. You work. It's that simple. If you don't work, you don't eat, you don't get a car, you don't get nice clothes, you don't go to good school. Today, you don't work, well, you have parents that might not be working either. And so they become lackadaisical in some households, not any. There's certainly people out there just killing themselves to make it.
Well, to your point, there's a lot of kids today that are working their ass off.
Yeah.
Probably as hard as any of us did when we were
Absolutely.
teenagers, but it seems like a large amount of them aren't really pulling their weight.
Well, I think,
Today's generation.
yeah, probably yes, but I think that so some of it is structural. Okay, there's some of it is structural. They're like, let's take New York State for instance. Okay, everyone is leaving New York State, right? Because of high taxes and whatever else. Corporations are not coming here; they're leaving here. And when was the last time that you ever heard of a manufacturing plant even thinking about coming to New York State? And so with those kinds of, years ago, I mean, those types of jobs underpinned the rising middle class. Working in a factory, doing this, doing that, they underpinned the whole thing. And now they've been just, at least especially in the Northeast and across the country, they've been taken away. And a lot of that has had to do with tax structures within different areas, and also the ability to find good employees in different areas, trained employees. For instance, in the Northeast, I think everyone's supposed to go to college, but maybe college isn't the right thing. And you go down to the South, and you have technical schools where people learn how to run lathes and this and that, and things that can provide value to a manufacturer. So, and that's where the job growth is. And then if you take that and you also add how we exported all these jobs to China, because of basically, their lower labor costs, that also hit the whole thing. So, when you take away opportunity, you take away drive, you take away the willingness of people to move forward or think they can move forward. And so that's,
I have to agree with you in a lot of.
You agree with me?
I agree with you. There's a lot of.
It took a podcast to get you two to agree on something.
I agree with you about the problem, but I think the cause is our political and class structure. And that basically our government is owned by money and lawyers. And then people like Bezos don't pay taxes. Right? And Warren Buffett said that my secretary pays more taxes than I do. And I'm a sort of middle class kind of guy, And every buck that business doesn't pay in taxes, I'm paying.
Right.
And healthcare should be free in the sense we all pay for it. Education should be free. Water should not be privatized. Right? Power should not be privatized. So I'm a revolutionary, and I think that the inequality and the lack of opportunity has arisen because of greed. We don't have capitalism, we have capitalitis and greedism. And that's why people are getting the crummy education, because the for-profit system works that way.
Well, that's the biggest ripoff in the
And
world.
I went to Ivy League schools, and when I went to school, tuition was $1,500. And since I'm really so smart, I went for nothing. I paid to go. Right. Now, my mother was a teacher. My father was a little lawyer, not a corporate guy. Right. And I figured that when I went to school, early 60s, they may have made $30,000 a year. And I worked at the school. I had a job at the library, 65 cents an hour. And I worked in the summer so I could pay for food in my little apartment because I couldn't stand being in dorms. But when it was all over, they could afford to send me to college. And there were people who were working in college and they could work at a job and pay for their university education. Now it's $80,000 a year. I went to Princeton and Columbia, right? And those places are enormously expensive.
I look at it in like a macro, my own 360, and I see businesses all around this business that are hiring, can't get anybody to do the job. Whether it be in the bar around the corner or the grocery store across the street, we're hiring, and I think it's 15, 16 bucks an hour. They can't get anybody.
Now, why can't they get it?
I don't know, maybe to Henry's point, they're not seeing where they can get to hear from there, or, I don't know.
It seems to be a problem all over the country. It's not just here.
No, but I'm just
Yeah,
talking about my
I
own
know,
little
I'm with you on that.
360 here.
Well, if you look at the demographics of Dutchess County, I mean, it's an aging group. Okay, Dutchess County is getting old.
And a wealthier group.
Yeah, but it's right. It's getting old, and I think that a lot of those, that labor force is kind of going away. Because it's too expensive for young families to kind of live in Millbrook or whatever, or anyone else. So
Dutchess County's always had low unemployment numbers. It's always been around 2%. So it's harder, and a lot of people have moved up here since the pandemic, which has put a lot of pressure on trying to find employees to fill slots at a time where people weren't going to work because they were afraid of the virus. So it's really exacerbated the situation. But I take all of your points. Opportunities, the money market, everything has to be built on a profit, which is not the right thing to do. An egregious profit in many cases. And I think that has stymied people's expectations of reward for hard work in a lot of places. And how the hell you get out of debt once you get into debt is not an easy thing.
I agree with what you said about money running the country. Okay, I don't quite get this socialism perspective of your argument, but I mean I was listening to an interview with Colin Powell today, the Federal Reserve Chairman, and he was talking, and basically this guy said from the Cato Institute said that they brought up fiscal. Am I talking too much? I'll shut up.
No.
They were talking about fiscal policy, and basically he said that before he got on the Fed, it's something that he was concerned about and working on, and that now that he's on the Fed, he can't discuss it because that's congressional responsibility. And I think that see what I think has happened over the last 10 years. Even longer, is that I think that the government here, our government, meaning Congress and all those jerks, have turned over their responsibility for our economy, short-term and long-term, to the Federal Reserve. And they've totally forgotten what their role is as far as having some level of fiscal responsibility. And, that's why we're running the deficits that we do. That's why we have the dysfunction that we have, because everyone, like you said, is looking out for themselves, and it all comes down to the dollar. And who can get their bigger piece of the fiscal pie. And the fiscal pie today is debt. It's not real money, it's debt. It's got US government
Part
debt.
of the reason it's debt is the financial establishment figured out that they could make a lot of money by running this country on debt.
Yes.
And everybody,
Yes.
so corporations and business theorists all decided to go for this stuff. So, I spent years as an investment banker, and I've got an MBA, which I think is a totally fictional degree. But there is no, if the theories of economics and finance were judged by the theories of mathematics or physics, nobody would believe them. But think about it, 6 months or 8 months ago, not one of our brilliant economists anywhere, or the money managers, said, oh, inflation is going to be 8% at the end of this year. Not one of them. So these are the people who are running our economics, and they're making predictions, and why should anybody believe their predictions? They didn't have any validity 6 months ago or 8 months ago. They were all worried about inflation being under 2%.
Janet Yellen, didn't she say it was gonna be 3 or 4%?
Yeah, but
And then had to come back and say she didn't realize it was gonna be more than twice that?
I think, I think that we have to get our fiscal house in order. And part of that is we have to start raising taxes on corporations and on the very wealthy. They have to come up with their bigger piece of the pie.
Well, not only
And,
that.
but I think people like Elizabeth Warren, okay, with her wealth tax and whatever, don't have a clue as to how complicated and how crazy that is. And so basically we should just begin to tax what we know is there, which is income.
The problem is people get wealthy because of the structure of society, and they should not get that wealthy. Why is Bezos worth $300 billion and his employees not? The productivity of that corporation should be shared by all the people who are making the cars. The same thing,
Does Amazon pay a dividend?
very low, but his wealth is in stock.
It's all paper.
Well, that's why I'm asking if
Musk's
they pay a
wealth is
dividend.
on paper, isn't
Hmm?
it? Musk's wealth is on paper.
Musk's wealth is on paper.
I mean, I just think that we just have to, yes, but you can't, meaning, okay, somebody has so much stock, and you're gonna say, all right, and so many famous paintings and whatever else, and we're gonna add that all up and tax them.
Well,
Okay,
think how they earned it.
but it's not a question how they earned it, it's a question of how do you really just get to the money? Maybe what they should do, like Bezos, when he goes out and funds his Star Quest or whatever it is, he's putting up his stock as collateral, and he's borrowing against that stock. So we see cash coming out of that stock. So maybe what we should do in those circumstances is tax that cash
Also,
as a capital gain or as something. So if he takes out 100 million, he pays 20%.
well, he can borrow against it. And
That's what he does though. That's what he does. But tax the borrowings.
But he gets praised for his entrepreneurship, and he can send a rocket to the moon because NASA spent billions and billions of tax money making that system work.
I
And
think
now he is cherry picking the research of this country for his own profit.
Bezos and Musk or Tusk or whatever his name is, I think they confuse luck and brains. That's all I can say. I'm just a little guy sitting here from the Bronx, and I look at them, and I think that we have to tax their wealth. We should tax cash. whenever cash comes out of something, we should tax that, because you can define what cash is. And you say, okay, I borrowed a 500 million against my Amazon stock to shoot the moon. And I didn't mean by drop his pants by that. And so we tax it at 20%.
But he made that money because his corporation made that money.
That's okay.
And then they subscribed to the trickle-down theory.
All right, but you know what? That's ancient history. It's done and it's behind us.
But not for a lot of people, they don't know.
No, but it's, what you have to do is you have to get to the wealth, and the way
Excuse me, Henry, as someone with an MBA, let me ask you this question.
Well, an MBA is a useless degree, it's a fiction.
Well,
It's nothing but a membership card.
someone that is a member of the MBA Society then, Dr. Ben Carson, who was running for president at the time, 2016, I think, advocated for a 10% across the board income tax with no loopholes.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think,
In other words, Bezos, you, me,
I think he has no idea.
everyone but Barry has to pay 10%.
Probably the lower 50% of our country is not paying anywhere near 10%. And the people who have no money or very little, you hit them with 10%, that's a disaster. If Bezos was 10%, he could afford 70% and not change his lifestyle. He'll still have a big ship and he'll still do whatever he wants.
Well, that's why I think the fundamental problem, which is where I was going with this, is there's too many loopholes in the tax code. Or, you know, you can find a loophole that I don't know about, and you're paying less taxes than I am because you found that loophole.
The loopholes were written by Congress.
Well, I know,
At the behest of
but
lawyers and regulators.
across the board, 10%, even if you cut off the lower, say, 25K and below income earners, and across the board, 10% would be fair and equitable, I would think.
I don't think so.
You wouldn't be comfortable paying the same percentage of your income that Bezos pays on his?
I often tell people, I work as an ER doctor, so I can make a certain income. I would say, I am willing to cut my income by 50%, right? Do it gradually over the next 10 years so I can adjust, because I am not socially worth that. And do you think people have a social value making millions a year? Do sports figures, are they worth $100 billion contract? You know, when people don't have money or health care or education.
I think that you can't take out entrepreneurism. And you can't make that go away. And that's what you're sort of saying. And you can't make that go away. And as far as, I used to be in the leasing business. And there's all kinds of tax shelters in that business. And I agree that there's a lot of abuse in the tax code. You know, for instance, back in the 80s, a big bank would go out and basically do some shenanigans and make it look like they paid taxes in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Okay, and then what they would do in January 2nd is they filed for a refund because it was all cosmetic.
Sure.
Okay, because they really just cooked the books. I mean, it's you know, but I think you have to. I mean, yeah, you have to do a lot with tax structure. You know, it's just also, I think, I don't know. There's a sense of entitlement. Too many people just feel entitled. You know, and it's like, I'll just leave it at that. Okay, at this point.
Well, we're gonna take a quick break, because I know, Phil, you have to go see a man about a horse.
Yes.
I will throw this out before we let you go,
Mhm.
and then we'll come back in the three of us, we'll wrap it up, but, I think you'll see the 10% flat tax across the board. You'll see that right after Congress gives themselves a pay cut. So, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that on the floor, and I'd love to see AOC vote for
Somebody
it.
told me that if you're elected to Congress, even if you're not reelected after your first term, you
Yeah.
still get a pension for life.
I heard the
If
same
you
thing.
show up for one day, you get a pension.
And free healthcare.
And free healthcare, one day. It's worth running for.
It's a good investment.
It's a good investment.
It's a good career move, that's for damn sure.
I've been delighted to be here.
Not to mention full dental. But we appreciate that, Phil. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
you coming by.
I'll try to not see you at the ER.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. If they wheel me in and you're on the job, you know, just throw the
I
sheet over.
recognize you.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All right, welcome back to the Phil-less portion of this episode. I'm still here with Barry Kieselstein-Cord on my immediate left now.
Hello.
You look even better up close.
Thank you, Led.
And I have Henry Boehringer on my right.
Next time I'm gonna wear my shades just like Barry.
Yeah, we all could be a little bit more like Barry.
The light's so bright, you know. I get lost at night.
So, yeah, we were talking about economics mostly. I didn't realize Phil was an MBA.
Yes, he's a very learned man with high experience in a lot of realms that were not touched on.
But we'll have to have him back to touch on him.
Financial, extremely literate, medical, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He's covered a lot of bases, very well. Very well.
As you and Henry have as well.
I don't know, you know, we're all from different directions, points of the compass.
But here we are sitting right next to one another.
Here we are in your emporium,
And we're having
enjoying a conversation.
quasi-political, quasi-economical conversations without killing each other.
And a little royal conversation.
And a little royal conversation, yes.
And that's it. So are you going to drink a pint tonight to celebrate? The
Oh, bit Jesus, I don't know.
Take
It
into throwing.
might be disrespectful to have a Guinness, I'm not sure.
I don't know. I might do it myself. Maybe two.
Mhm.
You never know.
So Barry, I was gonna ask you before, when we were in the first half of this,
This is to be a dangerous question, no question about it.
no, I was just gonna ask you if you think that set all those jobs you had as a youth set you up well for your future endeavors.
Unequivocally. There was no job apparently too low for my family to say you need to do this. If you want this, you have to do that. We'll join you 50%. In other words, if I wanted a jacket, I paid for 50%. If I wanted a car, 50%. When I went to college, 50%.
Couldn't afford money.
That's a motivator. And I was born into a family of entrepreneurs. And when you're born into an entrepreneurial family, they expect the same of you generally. A few of my contemporary cousins dropped out of that realm, but most of them stayed in it. Some of them went into medical professions, which I guess is entrepreneurial in itself, but a different type of thing. And I think it served me very well because no job was too low or too small or too hard, and it kept working mentally and physically ever since. It set me up for what I thought was a great understanding of this. I would have liked a little more time off. You know, when people were out there playing ball, I was in the house doing something, and on the weekends when I had hoped to play outdoors, I was working family business for somebody else. So there was a side of it, the detriment. A little more playtime would have been perfect. I never did get the balance of work hard, play hard. Balance of work hard, you try and relax. But that's not bad. I mean, you know, the times were interesting. They remain interesting.
Like the kid that's pleading to stay home and take violin lessons and the parents that keep pushing him out to play baseball.
Something like that. Or making him hammer nails, you know, a framing job and he wants to play the violin or wear a tutu. Today it's a tutu.
Well, no one ever accused you of being a slacker.
That's true.
You have a reputation with for having phenomenal work ethic. And that's what made me curious. All those jobs you mentioned before, if it served you well.
It did.
Sounds like it did.
It did because you've also learned a ton of different things. And someone says you can't do something in that experience, but you do, or at least you can parlay a few of the different things that you did into one new direction and learn it quickly because you're familiar with several others. And it's not like you were slinging hash your whole life, and slinging hash and putting up a building and driving an oil truck, or designing something, or something else. You can coalesce all of them into some direction, take a new road, because you have experience in different fields. And I think that's fun.
I think that's what my life experience has taught me is there's many different approaches to the same objective.
Exactly.
To your point, and you could probably agree with that, I would think. I've learned is like a business deal, a standard business, like a retail purchase of a house or something.
We also,
There's a 1,000 ways to finance that.
it goes back to both the conversation we had before about why don't they teach shop in school anymore? Everybody should learn shop. Just if you learn one thing, the appreciation for somebody who made something, actually physically made something. Years later, you're a banker, but you know what it is to make that mold. And if you don't have that, you don't have an appreciation for it, and vice versa.
Well, Henry touched on that before, and when he was talking about the people that maybe shouldn't go to college. Was that you that was mentioning that?
Well, yeah, yes.
I was thinking of a friend of mine who was a professor, just retired. He was on a previous podcast. He had mentioned to me, I won't mention his name, but I told you where to go to find his name.
Right.
He thinks 80% of the people that go to college shouldn't go to college.
Well, he would know from, I guess, his experience. I don't know where he taught, what he taught. And maybe, I don't know personally, sour on it, may not be sour on it. I think at least there's an experience when you go to college, even if you don't, you learn things that you normally wouldn't be exposed to, assuming you're paying attention. So 80% is a very high figure. I think that, call something, humanities, you study humanities, you took a course that was very, a general course, that your exposure to, whether it be art, poetry, politics, chemistry, the humanities, philosophy, you wouldn't normally get that if you didn't go to college.
Mhm.
And so you may get your first job when you're out of high school because you didn't go to college, and you may take some manual training for something, but you miss all these other opportunities, so you don't really know, you really haven't experienced them. So I would have a tendency to disagree with him on the face of it. I would have to have a further conversation with him in order to say, why would you pick a number that's so high, 80% shouldn't go to college? That's an awful lot.
Yeah, well, I think the underlying elephant in the room is the recent forgiveness of student loans. That's why I wish I had brought this up when Phil was still here, but like I say, we'll have him back. If you studied medieval, whatever, studies, Middle Eastern studies or something, and you're getting your student loan forgiven. What happens to the people who paid off their student loan already? Or the people who didn't go to college? Or the people that went to a trade school instead?
Now you bring up an interesting subject that both sides of the aisle have been pushing and pulling on. And that is that I asked my stepson about that, who paid off his college loans. And he worked very hard to do that. He worked his way all through college, went to some very expensive schools, and retired his loans 2 years out of college, 2.5 out of college. He was against people paying it off for him, and he wouldn't take advantage of it, even though he could qualify and go back and get some of his loans taken care of when he's already paid off. And I kind of looked at that, and I thought, that's a little strange to me. I had to work to go to school, pay for 50%. I didn't have any college loans. I think my tuition was about $45 a year at the time. But still, if you look at inflation, that's a lot of money. And I paid it every single year, as I did pay my daughter's schools, which were quite expensive. They were really fine schools. And I thought, I wouldn't have minded a little bit of a help. That would have been nice. But who's to say? I think it depends on so much your economic condition. And of course, if there were usurious loans and the rates were, egregious, then they weren't fair loans. But I'm really not in a position to know because I'm so far past that in terms of age. I don't have a direct interest in it, so I can't put my finger on saying that's right or that's wrong. I just know it's a controversial subject, and I would think that some help is reasonable. Some loans you have to have if you can't afford that, because there'll be a lot of brains out there going walking that would never be used. So it's difficult to draw the line, but I think usurious rates that are ridiculously high that you couldn't possibly pay back, I would be against. In terms of the core thing, should they be paid off by the government? Well, I'm not a socialist, but in Europe, colleges are free.
But that's the point that
There's the flip side.
the point on that flip side is that the government doesn't pay off the loan, doesn't forgive the loan. It's the taxpayer.
In Europe.
in this country.
in this country. The
That's
taxpayer,
when
and the
the
taxpayer,
president says we're gonna forgive loans
right,
that the government backed, that means you and I are paying it.
isn't the taxpayer in Europe paying for those?
I would imagine, I don't know, I'm not over here.
So you don't have the schools for profit that you can have over here, my assumption. I really am not that familiar with the economics of the situation. I paid the place, so to speak, go to school, you pay. But, in Europe, you get free education, but someone had to pay for that. Maybe the schools are not built on the profit basis that we have here. Maybe they don't have multi-billion-dollar trust funds. Some of our schools do, while others suffer, scrape it together to make it work. I don't know. I'm not that conversant with the whole process.
Germany has a system where they direct you towards either a university or some other type of career. Okay, there's a test there that you take called the Abitur, and that sort of decides what you're going to do in life. And and not everyone goes to universities in Germany because they're free. And they look, and I think this might be in other places in Europe, but I just know a little bit about Germany, because they see their university system as a resource. Something that a limited resource. It's that you can't, only so many chairs, only so many classrooms, only so many professors.
They have that in Japan as well. You take a test and they study really hard in high school.
Right, and so
And if you pass the test, you get into a university and it's paid for, but if you don't pass the test, you do something else.
right, yeah. So there's, it goes back to something I was kind of saying before, is that college is not for everybody. But here, we've decided that, it's the golden rule. It's what everybody needs, and it's not. What I think it needs opportunity. I grew up
It needs opportunity. I have found, by and large, incredibly smart people that never went to college.
Yeah.
I've found people in the countryside that are so smart, it's amazing. Whether they're happy or not, I can't tell you that, but absolutely smart. Their education is a high school education. They're fantastically insightful as well. It's really damn smart. So it's not for everybody, but I think everybody should have a chance.
I'd love to know, to your point, Henry, what the comparison of pay scales are between a teacher in America and a teacher.
I don't know, but I was talking to a doctor who from Germany once, and he said that basically, I said, well, what's your economics versus an American doctor? He said, well, it's about the same because we get a free education. We're not covered, we're not riding with any debt. Okay.
So there's no student loans.
Yeah, no student loans. Yeah. So college is I think has been overrated. It's become overrated in this country, and I think that the quality of education is in some of these schools really is dumbed down because the students are dumbed down. And that's part. What did I get out of college? When somebody asked me that once, I went to a liberal arts college called Wittenberg University, Springfield, Ohio, a little Lutheran school. Okay, because I went to a Lutheran high school. And this teacher, I wanted to enlist in the Army. And I was 17 when I graduated from high school. I was going to turn 18 in February. Brought the papers home for my mother and father to sign, and they said I was freaking nuts. I was going to college. So then when I got to college, there I am in Springfield, Ohio, from the South Bronx. And it's like, everybody's wearing penny loafers and whatever, and I got black Converse sneakers on and whatever else I'm wearing.
Plus that star on the side.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, Chuck Taylor, But, and so, when I realized what I got by going there and getting out of New York City, what I realized is going to sound kind of bizarre, that I was supposed to be white and middle class one day. Because everybody I grew up with was black or Spanish, and I was more of a street person than I was anything else. And somehow, during the course of whatever I've done in my life, I've come across that. So college delivers something different to everyone that is formative to them. But I don't think that today, I just don't know if they're getting enough bang for their buck out of it being, it's just, especially with the internet and all these different things, their whole social conscience is based upon TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and they're not developing any other social conscience. Like I was able to realize that, well, I'm not supposed to do that anymore. You can't just hit someone. It's just, so I don't know. I don't know. It's a hard thing to say.
Would you say we're going through an era of the next 10 years or 15 years of major change in this country? I think so. I think we're in a dam breaking period. I wanted to say that in a drought, but a dam breaking period where I think we're going to see some major change. Where I think all of this is being re-examined. We have a political divide that has to come together in order to get progress in this country, in order to be competitive around the world. And we certainly have to compete because everybody wants our bacon. So the educational system is paramount, that we all have good educations, whether it's education in tool and die, or an education in being an atomic scientist or a Wall Street producer. We all need good education in something. And I think that the infrastructure appears to be broken. I don't know, I'm not in education. I'm out of education for a long time. And all I can do is look at young people, see how the young people are adjusting or not adjusting, what they want, how they feel, whether they're achieving or not. So, again, I apologize for not being closer to it. I wish I was an active parent with a kid in school so I could, but I'm not. And, but I know from looking from the outside that I think a lot of things that you said are very relevant. I would like to see some major changes, and I don't know if we're going to see that because the structure of this country is very much what Phil was saying, profit, 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 at the expense of a lot of things, starting with humanity. And so I'm positive. I think we're going to have positive changes. I think it may be a painful change here and there, but I think it's going to be positive.
Well, one of the changes I think needs to happen is a refocus of what this country needs,
I agree.
You go to college to learn political science, that's one thing, but if you go in there to learn creative arts,
Well, wait a minute, now, wait a minute. Creative arts.
or philosophy, you major in philosophy, you're gonna get your options are teach philosophy or work in Burger King, really.
That's philosophy. Philosophy has taken a second
But
seat for a long time.
I think our nation needs to refocus that, we still need plumbers, we still need electricians, we still
I'm with
need,
you on there.
I'm just saying.
But,
But a little glorification of that profession.
They're doing well. They're the guys that, with boats,
The plumber, yeah. Wow.
they're pretty damn busy. I mean, if you look at, I actually saw a chart that was kind of side to side. First year out of plumbing, second year out of plumbing, first year in Wall Street or lawyer's office. I mean, top jobs on that end. They're pretty damn close. And it turns out if you're really a skilled craft person, you can earn a lot. And you can do really, really well. I mean, you're in the solid middle class, if not a little bit above, especially if you have two people working for you. You're a little bit entrepreneurial.
Well, you made a good living as an artist.
I still do.
Still do.
Yeah, so I can't say that I'm totally an artist. I'm an entrepreneur and a business person as well. Of course, at this stage of my life, I've slowed down a little bit, but not that much. And artists, I used to lecture at colleges in schools in New York. I started lecturing at Chapin's Women's School, telling them how women, and this goes back a while, 70s, late 70s, that women could be just as earning as much money as men and actually be in charge of men, and please stop trying to make your daughters perfect little house girls and lining them up to marry a wealthy man when they can actually be wealthier than the man, and they can actually do things. I started off by looking at the floor and telling them someone designed the floor, someone designed the seating, someone wrote the orders, someone did the sales, and I said, all of your daughters could be doing all of this. They should just be looking for a wealthy guy. Back in the late 70s, that was kind of a new concept. Glass ceiling was just being chipped at. So I was proactive, and when I went to lecture on at colleges at Syracuse and Fashion School of Design, I took the same tack, but I made it broader because times were moving ahead. So the art certainly can pay very well, as any field can pay well if you're good at what you do. If you're good at what you do, you could be the best ice cream cone filler in the world and make a living. The best bartender, they can do really, really well. You know, or the best plumber, harder and harder to make a good living as a doctor because medical malpractice insurance. But there are so many fields that you can do well in if you really are dedicated to doing it. And I think a lot of people, you know, they work as hard as they want. Some of them work extra hard. There are high achievers, low achievers. People are just happy to get by. And Friday night comes around, they're going to have their burger and their beer. They're going to be perfectly happy, which I've invited you all to do, by the way.
Oh,
And,
Jesus.
Let's wrap it up right now, Henry.
You've got to come along.
If you don't mind me asking, what did you do mainly, or do?
I was in the equipment leasing business, and I sort of developed a specialty in rail and intermodal, and some aircraft, transport category aircraft. But ultimately, it was not the finance lease business; it was the operating lease business, where you took an asset risk, meaning remarketing. You know, you did a 3-year deal on something that only paid back 10% of your equity. And so you had to worry about, well, how do I get the other 90% in the profit? Okay, so that's the operating lease business, short-term rentals. Banks typically do long-term type things, you know, until recently, but that's a whole nother story.
You work primarily in the aircraft industry?
No, it was actually, you know, mostly rail. I mean, that's really a fair amount in rail. Freight cars, locomotives, stuff like that. You know, I worked for a rail car manufacturer. But it was always having something to do with operating leases, whatever. You know, you would come up with somebody who, you know, always a good credit, who wanted to have a rail car for 5 years. And then there was, back then banks got out of there were more regulatory restrictions. And so what you do then is you try to take this piece of paper and the car and sell it to the bank. Okay. And when the banks, interesting, banks always get stupid. I mean, what happened is aluminum coal cars were very hot because they could carry more coal and they were lightweight, whatever else. And you had all this coal coming out of the Powder River Basin going down to utilities in Texas and Georgia and whatever else. Well, guess what happened? Coal isn't moving as much.
Oh, coal, okay. I was gonna say aluminum.
No, coal. No, now what they're doing is they have the option, if they can't really repurpose cars like that very easily. And so they're sitting there with a bunch of beer cans on wheels. You know, I mean, that's just a commentary on banks. But at least, but anyway, that's what I did. You know, I sort of morphed into that. Yeah.
Interesting. Sounds like a very interesting.
Different.
Well, usually I like to tie 2 and 2 together, but for some reason I can't tie what you did and what you did or do together.
Well, I was the art.
Odd couple.
I was the art of the deal, and Barry was the art of talent.
To deal with the art.
The art of the deal and the deal of the art.
The
I
deal of
like
the art.
that. Tom, you put an exclamation point on that.
So I'm gonna charge you if you use it, but
So anyway, I appreciate you guys coming by.
I appreciate you having us
We'll have to
here.
have you all back
and discuss,
Light and happy
to
subjects.
solve some more world problems, you know.
Adam and Eve. Let's talk about Adam and Eve.
We'll take it from there, yeah. It'll be a short one.
But those of you fellas that, folks, excuse me, that watch our podcast, know that I'm trying to show a little bit of my store in every episode, so.
Good.
I don't know, one of these days it'll be in the basement. The Millbrook
Yes,
Antique Center.
the absolute
Millbrook,
best.
Yeah.
Something for everyone.
God bless you for saying so.
Well, they mean it too.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming by.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.